Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron. Got this from the Creation Science Movement United Kingdom. You can get all their stuff really cheap, and the Royal Mail is good. Numbers in Scripture by Peter Bluer, Bachelor of Science Honors. Hey, thanks for being with us. Join us daily. Do check out our other videos and hit subscribe, bell notification, and share with your friends. This number in Scripture, when I used to work at Berean, there were some books out on numbers in Scripture, because it goes back to this biblical interpretation principle that there's nothing accidental or incidental in Scripture. I was just listening to a preacher preach, and he said sometimes in Scripture numbers are symbolic, and what his point was in that, he was actually trying to say like the millennium and various things, these were all symbolic numbers and not literal numbers. And to this point in my exegesis and understanding of Scripture, I would disagree with that. But I would say numbers do have a significant, and it does seem like there are certain numbers that are constantly reinforced in Scripture, 1, 3, 7, 12, 40, and so certain things. He's going on a principle that Ivan Panin went down. Now I know like Ed Velo, I think I did a review of his book several years ago about number in Scripture, and there are some other famous books. I think maybe a guy named, was it Jackson Bullinger maybe, have written some other famous books of numbers in Scripture. So God, like atheists, they try to make mathematics God, like Bertrand Russell kind of did some of this. But I've talked to a lot of atheists here online that's kind of what they're thinking. They're like, well, math is infinite. And so, and I remember in my philosophy class, they used to say that too. They'd say, it was a Christian philosophy class, if that's not oxymoron, but they would say, yeah, because the reason they would say math is infinite, you can think of the largest number you've got and then do +1. So it never ends. There's a lot of implications there, but that's not really, this pamphlet's not talking about any of this. It's talking about how like Greek, Hebrew, Latin used numbers, their letters represented numbers. And it's got a little good thing like Aleph in Hebrew represented 1, Bet 2, Gimel 3, Dalet 4, all the way down to Tav 400, Shin 300, Resh 200, Kof 100, Zod 90, Peh 80, A and 70, and on and so forth. So, and I've read another book, I wish I knew, this was years ago, and it was it would take the numerical values of certain verses and come up with these really profound truths. But Ivan Panin, which I've done a couple of reviews of his stuff, really is the master of all that. So that's what this is. It's like the first verse of the Bible. He goes into deep things with the prime factors and all this. And he goes into the Greek language, like Omega is 800 and Psi is 700, not from Duck Dynasty. Chi is 600, Phi is 500, Epsilon's 400, Alpha is 1, Beta 2, Gamma 3, Delta 4, Epsilon 5, Zeta 7, Eta 8, which now, like Greek and Paleo-Hebrew, Greek obviously came from Paleo-Hebrew if you study it. There's a lot of good things on YouTube and other channels about that. It goes into the like CERN and what it has to say about this. Like Logos, or word, has a numerical value of 373, which is the 74th prime number. 74 is 2.37. The Hebrew for God is Elohim, 86, and the Greek for God is Theos, 284. Add these gives 370, 2.5.37. The Greek for Jesus, Jesus, has the value 888, 2.2.2.3.37. Well, the Greek for Christ is Christos, value 1480. And so we can see the creation of the world is bound up in the Hebrew and the Greek with the value 37. In a recent 1995 BBC Two TV program about quantum mechanics, the director of the CERN laboratory was discussing the number of blueprints of the atomic particles, and there was 37. So, would it surprise me? It's got the last page is a thing about Ivan Panin. If there's some numerical structure to Scripture, I wouldn't be surprised, because the mind of God, layers, there's mountaintops of prophecy, and a verse can have an initial meaning and a future meaning, like, the abomination of desolation may refer to Antiochus Epiphanes, but then a future Antichrist, and it may even have to do with the Roman destruction of the temple in the interregnum and all this. But unless you've just got a lot of spare time, now, unless there's some way you could just computer generate this to figure this out. Ivan Panin was born in Russia, 1855, died in 1942. During his long life, he produced more than 40,000 pages of research, all without the aid of computers. That he made some mistakes does not invalidate the concept about the oracles of God, God the Creator, the great mathematician. I think, okay, so the Bible's simple enough a child can understand its basic tenets and precepts. It's complicated enough to where the greatest minds can spend a lifetime mining the treasures and never get everything out of it. Need to get out of it. This is something I would just kind of be careful with. We're not talking about numbers too, like in the book of Isaiah, where it's talking about basically a proto-lottery kind of things that it's preaching about. But would it surprise me if there's not some type of fascinating math in Scripture? I know, like when I was in the Sea of Galilee, they were talking about the 153 great fish that the disciples got after Jesus' resurrection, and how 153 is a numerical value for Elohim. And, our Jewish tour guide was saying, Jesus is here making a declaration that he is God. And so with nothing accidental or incidental in Scripture, yeah. But how deep it goes, I don't know. Maybe when we see him, we'll be like him. Maybe there's some people called to this kind of ministry. I don't know that this is one of the things they do. For me, I would stick with the basic, 12 apostles, 7 days of creation, 40, flood, and different things such as that. You get much beyond that. You just have to be careful, because we don't want to twist Scripture. And, in Colossians 2, it talks about vainly puffed up in their fleshly mind, looking into things that they don't know anything about. And that's talking about angels. So, hey, God bless. Thanks for being with us. Keep studying the Bible, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.